Greetings, welcome to Arcturian philosophy, and today I'm simply going to describe myself, I believe, because much of the story, if people attempt to follow my videos, I know they're very hard to follow. The order is probably difficult to follow for anyone who is actually interested in what's going on or how Agenda 21 didn't happen. I was told, well, Krista, how about you just try and make an autobiography of some type and tell people who you are. So, who I am, my name is Krista Elizabeth Hauer. The first video that I made, the first one, period, where I was wearing my pink kimono, I had been under so much duress that I was stoned out of my mind and probably couldn't really even think straight. So I know I sounded pretty zonked out. That's why I thought to myself, I better make a video now that I'm not getting half murdered. Even though I still am experiencing that to a degree, but I'm handling it quite a bit better now. So my name is Krista Elizabeth Hauer on this earth, but I am what is called a soul fork, or some people think of this as a walk-in sometimes, where I communicate with an extraterrestrial race, primarily the Arcturians. And I didn't believe in any aliens. I thought they weren't real. And I didn't find out about this stuff until March of 2014. So that's not even really that long ago. And I thought, this stuff sounds bizarre. I don't know. You guys been taking your meds? I was practically thinking that. And and so in this, what I ended up discovering through some interesting circumstances that I think I won't describe, but basically I went through a process that is called activation. And activation can occur in a forced fashion, which is how it happened with me, or it can occur in a more natural fashion. And it was beginning to occur naturally. So what the race that we call the gray aliens forcibly attempted to activate me so that they could attempt to steer me around like their little puppet. And I figured it out and broke out of it. So that was how I came to understand all of these things. I had some help, which was ironically our enemies zapping me in the head. Even though there are lots of Arcturians that have been notified by the Arcturians themselves. Hello, you are Arcturian. Excuse us. But for me, the Greys targeted me and tried to see if they could get me under control somehow before I communicated with the Arcturians. But I figured out the trap. And so you might be thinking, who are the Arcturians? What is this? What is going on is our planet is conscious. And everything is consciousness, and everything is energy. So our planet is conscious, and the planet is aware that it's dying. The planet is aware that we are murdering it. And, for a while, you can kind of ignore that. You think, oh, well, we're more important than it. But we rely on it to survive. It's a symbiotic relationship. So, I wasn't raised in any of those environmental type groups or anything. But now I look at what is being done. I look up at the sky and I can see, oh my God, we are murdering our homeland. We are murdering our own home. How could we be doing this? So the Earth herself has decided, and also it's not genderized, but since we tend to say Mother Earth, so so that really seems to fit, I think. And she has decided she is going to ascend into the 5th dimension, whether we like it or not. And so that means either we go along with the idea and ascend with her, or we become destroyed somehow, either through natural disasters in the process, with our thought frequency, with our frequencies conflicting with the frequency of the Earth, which is far more powerful than all of us. That can, create kind of an apocalyptic scenario where you see the Earth saying, I am going to ascend, like it's an indigo screaming, I am going to ascend, volcano, earthquake, I'm going to ascend, whether you like it or not, you people, I need to kill you. You things destroying me, I've got to kill you. So the Earth can take that course, but the Earth doesn't really want to take that course because it understands that it supports life. It loves life. It loves the life that it supports. And fortunately, we are on the course of ascension, of world peace, even though it will take a little while. As Cryon said, it seems slow. You're already there. You've already won. No matter what they do, no matter who might get assassinated during this time, no matter what friends you might lose, or soldiers, warriors who might die in this battle, you've won it already. And you never die. You all understand that. So no one's actually going to die anyway. You're all in the middle of a video game doing this. and so once that perspective is there, oh my god, they gave me lung cancer, oh my god, or oh my god, they tried to break my leg, oh my god, oh my god. Once you understand that, as soon as my consciousness leaves here, it goes back. I go back onto a really, really cool looking mothership called the Ashtar Command, in front of lots of consoles, doing weird sign language and such, and saying to them, okay, wow, guys, okay, what are we gonna do now? All right. They're so excited up there. So the way this works, that does sound not very coherent. The way this works is a soul is like a stream, and this is the thing, most people would hear this from other teachers. A soul is like a stream, and with me, an extraterrestrial entity projects its stream forth into me. And what gets hairy about the whole thing is that this entity is also me in the future. But this idea is not weird at all because of Bashar. Bashar at some point finally said, that's me in the future. Daryl Anka said, Bashar is me in the future. The Yahyel is me in the future. And I thought to myself, hey, the Ashtar Command told me don't talk about that. Don't say anything about the time travel with this, or else we could really screw stuff up. What are you doing? And I said that to Bashar. And Bashar said back to me, well, I'm not Arcturian. and I said, you asshole. So essentially, the soul stream, what they're able to do is from their different energetic centers, they're lighter density beings than us. They exist on higher dimensions. So right now, with the Arcturians, they're around, I'd say, the sixth dimension, and the idea is to get up to the 7th, while we get up to the 5th, and they get up to the 7th, and higher if they can do that. And so they project forth, almost like it appears almost like a beam to me in my mind. Project forth energy from what you would consider this heart, chest area, and that is where that stream comes down into me. So there's me that you'd call Krista, who was confused for 26 years of her life as to why I was so different from everybody else. And then the entire time there was also the other stream there, but lying dormant. This is something I can compare with GREYS that people might be more familiar with. So apparently, I am also genetically Arcturian, where at some point during the during conception, they have very advanced genetic engineering, and it would make sense that I have some Arcturian DNA because I'm still alive. Okay, that would make sense, even though I don't really know, because it was Jim from Human Colony that said that, and I don't know how accurate it was or not, because Jim's reptilian, just so you guys know, and he doesn't have your best interest in mind at all. But with having possibly 6% Arcturian DNA, also ironically being born what is called Rh negative, which is a reptilian trait. My mother is apparently a reptilian type hybrid, or a distant version of a hybrid. Blonde hair, blue-eyed, and with the very humped or hunched over back. Reptilians have a very humped back, like scoliosis. And so she would say, "Oh yeah, I have scoliosis." And now I look at it and I realize, oh, yeah, that's the reptilian, that's the reptilian breeding. But I didn't end up getting that. It seemed like in my birth, in addition to being born with literal halo indented on my head, I've talked about that, I had a halo indented on my head from trying to push out the birth canal so voraciously. There were all these factors about me apparently making me very interesting or unique. And the Arcturians, you see, they view you as sovereign, as most of the advanced extraterrestrial races do. And when I say advanced, I mean those of the dimensions that lack polarity. So that does not include the GREYS. GREYS and reptilian draconian races are regressive races that are based on fear. So with the Arcturians, you see, they don't follow you around from birth necessarily, unless beforehand you agreed with them. The way a lot of it will work is before you are born, you decide what you'd like to do on Earth. And so if you decide, oh, I'd like to partner up with these with these extraterrestrials who are trying to help the planet, okay, I'm going to do that. Now, remember, I am technically the Arcturian named Andromeda in the distant future. However this works, and when they knew I figured that out, they were scared. They underestimated my intelligence. They did not think I would figure that out, and they were suddenly very frightened, and they said, "Look, just don't tell anybody for a while." But when I saw that Bashar was saying it, I got kind of pissed off and said, okay, well, I'm going to talk about this because Bashar is saying it, and if we've got Mr. Yahyel saying this, we've got to get Arcturians doing it too, to keep things on track here. And so the way it will work, as you go through life, if you are, say, primarily Arcturian soul stream, you are watched by them in the capacity of a protective sense, but not in any kind of intrusive fashion, not things walking into your room. I had no idea that aliens existed. Sometimes I would have a feeling of a tall man walking behind me, and when you think about that, that sounds like a Pleiadian. But I would just have a feeling of someone walking behind me who was protecting me. And that was the extent of anything that I experienced when I was a child. Now, what the GREYS and the YAHYEL, what they do with children that have any of their genetic material, they implant them with chips, they follow them around from birth, they abuse them, they rape them, they give them injections of huge scary hypodermic needles. And I can tell you because I've got one of the marks on my arm still. And I've shown that however many times. Just to prove that, yeah, it was real. Waking up with the injection mark, that was real. I don't remember what happened, though. I have no memory of what occurred. But if I'm awake and something is happening, it's very hard for them to erase my memory. But when I'm sleeping, that's when they succeeded erasing my memory, unfortunately. So compared, say, to GREYS and YAHYEL, there are among us people who are gray hybrids, human gray, human YAHYEL hybrids. And they look just like humans. The only difference you sometimes notice is in the eyes, where they have a slant downwards like this, but not very much. If you think about gray aliens, look at them. They've got the eyes slanted like this. Sometimes you will see a slant with the eyes with a human hybrid, but it's hard to notice. Only if you're really looking for it would you see it, I think. With what they do to their hybrids, I really think it's awful. They follow them around, they order them around like dogs. They expect them to be little super soldiers. It's really sadistic. And on the other hand, with Arcturians, Andromedans are completely hands-off. They want everyone to get out of here and say, look, you leave the humans alone. It's their planet. You got everybody, get out. No matter who you are, Pleiadians, Arcturians, Vegans, Lyrans, Reptilians, Greys, Yahyel, all of you who have this negative agenda, you just get out and stop manipulating the humans, because if it wasn't for your stupid manipulations, they would be just as advanced as we are. That's the idea that the Andromedans have, and I really do. I agree with them to an extent there. It's kind of like in the United States where we've said, we shouldn't be bothering with the problem over in wherever country. That's what they're thinking. They're thinking, okay, we shouldn't even be bothering with this problem, but we think that this is disgusting. But you guys should just get out. All of you people that are messing with the humans, get out. Just get out. Because if you leave them alone, they'll be fine. And you guys, you can do whatever evil thing you're doing, you do it somewhere else. That's their idea. With the Arcturians, they're more focused on the concept of, well, that would be nice, but we've seen the reptilians, we know what they're capable of, and we have to take them out. Kind of is more of the mission sense of it, the more militarized sense. They're not very much like a military as a race, but with the Ashtar command, Arcturians like me on the Ashtar command have more of a militarized kind of attitude with it, of a mission. Not a military, but like a mission, that you are on a very distinct space mission or Star Wars or something like that. And so I grew up in basically satanic programming unwittingly. And this is very strange. It's very suggestive. It appears that my mother did not know she was a reptilian hybrid, but she would have all the instincts of reptilians, cleaning constantly. She would be constantly wanting to argue or like that. That's kind of how reptilians are. They're very antsy and angry a lot of the time. I would actually look at her sometimes when I was a teenager. I would realize, wait, I'm arguing with my mother over not what are we arguing about? Because we'd be talking about, say, like a sweater or something, and I would say, but I'm not arguing with you. I think the color is pretty. I'm agreeing with you. It would be the most bizarre thing. And so I wonder to this day, to what degree did my mother think that she was human? She would talk to me about how she was just kind of out of nowhere in her family, as if she popped out of nowhere, and then it didn't genetically make sense that she was in her family like she was. So I don't know if something happened there, but she met my father, and she seduced my father. She wanted children that were blonde-haired, blue-eyed like her, but for some reason she didn't get it through her head that if she had sex with a black-haired guy, she would have brown-haired kids. So, yeah, that's what happened. And what's very funny is I look just like my mother, and ultimately was trying to assassinate me, probably the whole time. She became possessed by a reptilian entity very powerfully after August 21st, to the point where she could not even remember how she gave birth to me, or that I had a ring indented on my head. But before that, she was doing things that were very clearly leading to my death. And before that, my brother, who now I can see had the look of someone who was possessed, and has the look of someone who is possessed still, and would simply stay in his room, a 25-year-old, cooped up in his room, rail thin. Everyone who is possessed becomes rail thin, starved. They look simply awful. They look horrible. And I would say to him, you're starting to look sick, And he would just look at me and say, well, Krista, it doesn't really matter. And he would he has a bit of money. And I said to him, you should be investing your money somehow. You can get out of this. I mean, you can get out of this hell that you're living in, because that house that we grew up in was a pure hell. And I called it a prison, he called it purgatory. So I called it a prison, he called it purgatory. So apparently for him it was worse, in his opinion. And I kept telling him, look, you have the money to get out. You have the ability to get out. And he would say, it doesn't matter. And I would ask him, but why? And he would say, he said this only once, but he said, because I'm going to be dead by the age of 30. And I thought, oh my God, are you suicidal? Is something, what's going on? And I think perhaps at the time he might have been feeling suicidal, but I think he knew more about what was going on. Or basically, when we were young, my father tried to use different programming tactics on us to possess us or satanically program us, and I was highly resistant. I resisted a bunch of it. There was some of it that remained, but I resisted almost all of it. My brother, on the other hand, he ended up being controlled, because they rape the young boys. They rape them anally, and this was what I saw. I saw, oh my God, this was what he did to him, and this was why my brother became this way. This was how it was done to him. And then I began to see images of things like that being done to me, but that somehow I would simply lie there as if I was not even aware of what was going on. or almost not in my body somehow, and somehow resisting the whole thing, or somehow snapping out of it, falling for something and then snapping out of it. So with my brother, you see, my mother knew that we were basically all in physical danger if we stayed near my father. He was physically violent and he would kill. And we had to get out. So she divorced him, but I don't know if she understood that we were being basically followed around. Right after she divorced him, the person sitting right next to me in class ended up at a parent-teacher conference. A man named Jerry began to hit on her and buy her things, and then when she wasn't able to buy things back, he would get mad at her. But he swept her off her feet and seduced her, and then they ended up marrying, and I knew something was wrong immediately. I didn't know what, but I knew something was wrong immediately. This guy basically became the new handler. For those of you who are into the mind control concepts, which I'm sure you are if you're watching this. I'm not sure how conscious he was of it, but he sure is now. I don't know at what point he got himself into it, but he did consciously become a Satanist. I mean, not like possessed. I mean, he consciously began to devote himself to Satan. With the wood pile that he would begin to put in the backyard, Wiccan-looking symbols, which were actually like Baphomet, things that are purely demonic symbols. The white rock with the Baphomet or goat's head symbol pointed out in the sun, symbolizing radiation and such hitting me. I realized, oh my God, he's actually put that man had actually put up a wind chime in the front yard which said "bullet" on it, and it was designed to shoot intruders. And how do I know this? Well, back when I was 16, and I was fighting this man tooth and nail, saying you're a sicko, basically. I ended up getting some speakers, and well, he knew about the technology inside the speakers, that they were actually audio to record what you do. The same thing happens with your regular TV, your computer monitor, any electronics, any newer electronics that you have are monitoring you and what you do, no matter who you are. All civilians, they do this to everyone. And slowly, Jerry Kihara, that's his name, became a Satanist, and at the same time did what Satanists do, which is become an elder at the church, a deacon at the Presbyterian Church, CPC, Community Presbyterian Church, where now, when I've been there, they have a very bad, sick agenda. They are a cover. It's not real anymore. It might have been real when I was younger, but now everything has been taken over and is reptilian grey controlled. So I grew up, around age of 8. I entered 3rd grade at Valley Christian High School in Dublin, California, where I ended up being the valedictorian as the junior high school valedictorian. And I was the real valedictorian for the senior high school valedictorianship. There was a technicality so that I didn't get to give the speech, but I have the transcript, and I am still the number one out of everybody. And they knew it. They completely knew it. What was happening is during my high school years, there was actually a teacher who went by the name Mark Anderson, but I'm sure that's a code now. Myself and another person who I now know is a starseed would call him Mr. Anderson in the hallway, just like I would call my cat Donald Bond, Donald Bond, for no reason. Why was I calling him that? Because when they tried to possess me, instantly Donald's eyes, the cat's eyes, turned red and would begin to attempt to harm me, looking at me, scratching me, doing things to me, and I had to say, get this cat out of here. I no longer own this cat. And so basically, Mr. Anderson. This was when the Matrix. This is when the second Matrix was going to come out too. Same year. We didn't know what we were saying, but we were actually saying, "Oh, spy. He's a spy." The way I know he was a spy, he was the English teacher, correct? And he would use every single paper I wrote practically as an example of the best writing that a person could do. He was from Princeton. He graduated from Princeton. And all of us would ask him, "What are you doing here at this, in the middle of nowhere Christian high school, tiny Christian high school? What are you doing here? You're from Princeton." And he would never have an answer. Well, what was he doing there? He was on assignment to watch our class, because our class was identified to have a lot of starseeds in it who were possible threats. And so how do I know this? This guy was very nice to me because I was his best student, and I mean best student. I got a 5 on his AP test, which is the highest score that you can get. I aced the entire thing. And I went up to him and I said, Princeton, I know that you're a Princeton alumnus. Princeton has been my dream school. Would you please be willing to write me a letter of recommendation? Now, usually when you ask any teacher, professor, something like that, especially if you are their best student, they say, of course. Even if you're not their best student or you suck at their subject, they'll say, "Well, okay, I'll help you out." That's usually how things work, right? He simply refused and gave no reason why. And I walked away so hurt by. He said, you should consider some other options, and I thought to myself, what is wrong with you? What? But I thought, but he's Mr. Anderson. He's so nice that he must know best. I guess. I thought he won't write me a letter to Princeton, and I'm his best student, and he won't write me a letter. This guy also would come up to me at random, and he would say, "Oh, Krista, I understand you taught yourself all about computers all by yourself, and that you built one all by yourself." And I looked up at him and I said, "Oh, yes." But I also thought to myself, how do you know any of that? And why are you asking me about it? Yeah, Mark Anderson was a spy. He was only there at that school for 1 year. He was there to watch our particular class and identify anybody else who was a threat, because I was identified as a major threat. Also, upon attempting to call the school when I was imprisoned, they would, after getting a hold of them twice, they would stop answering the phone. So, Valley Christian High School in Dublin, California, they are in on something truly sick. I believe. I do believe they are in on something sickening. Or, if they are not aware of it, they should become aware of it, because they are. Now, what happened after that? Well, I graduated technically 3rd in the class at the day when they were giving speeches, but on the day of the graduation, on that exact day, the transcripts that were printed out showed me as the first one, as the number 1. So if I were to go to a college and they asked me what rank were you in the class, I would show them the transcript and it would say number one in the class. This is the final transcript ever printed. It's the first one in the class. But still, it really hurt me that I wasn't able to give the speech. And I realize now I was being very severely targeted at the time by HARP. And I did not understand any of that at the time. Obviously, I didn't know about any of that. I knew something was seriously wrong in my family. I did understand. I said to my mother, look, I mean, other people go out and they have friends. They go out and they see movies. They go out and they do things. She would tell me literally that all I was allowed to do was drive myself to school and drive myself home, or drive myself to school, drive myself to Starbucks where I worked, and then drive myself home. Literally nothing else. And I would say to her, look, this makes no sense. The other people at school, this is not like this. This is not normal. My brother, he was not really able to fight back in the same way that I was. He wasn't an indigo in the same way. I believe he's actually more of a rainbow. I think he's a rainbow child, actually. But with me, I was one powerful little indigo bitch. And so I simply said, this makes no sense. And so I went up to Berkeley by myself, and my mother got so angry that she took the car keys. And after all of that, after what was going on, I thought, oh my God, I'm being imprisoned inside of my own house. This doesn't make any sense. Something's horribly wrong. And I have to get out. I packed a backpack. My mother actually came in, and I suddenly had the feeling, okay, move the backpack. She can't see any of this. I moved it away and simply looked over and smiled at her. And she said, we're going to talk about this when I get home after lunch, when I get home from work. And I said, oh yeah, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to take a shower, which was true. So, and she said, well, okay. So I ran, take a shower, because I knew it was probably the last shower I was going to have for a while. I knew that. And I began to collect everything that I could collect around the house that I figured would be good for survival outside of a house. I didn't know anything about camping. I didn't know anything about any of it. And my brother caught on. My brother was in his room, and he realized what was going on. And I wrote my mother a note, and I left with a huge backpack. Not a backpacking bag, because I didn't have one. Just a regular old school backpack, but stuffed to the brim of whatever you could take with you. Whatever I could manage to take with me, and the clothes on my back. And my brother tried to follow me. He followed me in his pajamas and socks down the street, all the way down the street. And he said to me, look, it's only a few more months, and then you'll be away in college. But see, I was going to a college I didn't even want to go to, over reasons I didn't even want to be there, a major I didn't even want to do, and all of it was just wrong. And I said to him, look, I have to get out of here. I don't want to hurt you. I'm sorry. And at least back then, I had a lot of physical strength. And I had to actually shove him away from me while also carrying a really, really heavy backpack. And he backed away. Even though I didn't hurt him, I just shoved him away because I said, look, I have to get out of here, no matter what. So I sat there, waited for the very, very slow buses around here. We have buses, but they almost never show up. So I just sat there for what seemed like forever until finally a bus came. And I ended up going with someone to Arizona. Ended up becoming a heroin addict there, but had my first experience of true freedom and what it is like to live independently, what it means to pay bills, what it means to pay rent, what it means to work at your job at the same time, what it means to live in that kind of lifestyle. And that lifestyle totally sucks, by the way. So, during that, it was the person that I was with. They actually knew about all this stuff, but didn't really tell any of it to me. They knew quite a lot about the Egyptian hermetic type magic. whatever you'd like to call it. And that was where I first began to learn about all of these things. I ended up breaking up with that person myself because they were just too much of a hopeless heroin addict. They couldn't manage to get themselves under control at all. It had been too long for him. He was such a very nice guy, but it had been so long that he had been addicted, 20 years or so, probably, that it just he couldn't let it go. By that time, it was too hard. It felt too hard for him. So we fast forward. I'm 21 years old, and I think to myself, I need to get off this. I need to get off heroin. I need to get off heroin. I need to get off heroin. And finally, I come across Ibogaine, which does work completely. It does work. And here's the problem, though. I was so successful after my Ibogaine treatment, completely quit heroin, completely, no withdrawal, no cravings or anything, that the people who did the treatment began to demean me on purpose because of all of this mind control. I don't know if they were even conscious that what they were doing was part of a larger plot. They may or may not have been actually conscious of these things. Or, for example, recently, they tried to get a Lyran on Skype with me to attempt to, suss out, do I actually have Ibogaine to work with or not? No, my mother stole it, assholes. But I had 5 grams stolen from me in cold blood, and I completely recovered. So I can completely recover through any means necessary. And I will. Because I am a better Ibogaine provider than literally every single one of you. Which is what's funny about it. That is what is so freaking funny about the whole thing. So, after what occurred there, because I was perceived as a threat inside of this matrix, basically, they tried to bring me down, tried to cause me to relapse, tried to cause me quite a bit of problems, and then they will attempt to make you feel guilty over what they themselves have done. This is what many targets of mind control experiments have said, where they are the ones causing you to do something or trying to push you to act in a certain way, and then trying to make you feel guilty over it. Well, no. Sorry, it doesn't work. The game's over. No, it doesn't work. So I worked for a while doing treatments, but what ended up happening is after a short period of time, after about a year, the people that I began to treat were spies, and I was unaware. But because of my frequency, they were unable to actively do anything to me, and I will still say this completely out in public. It is irrelevant when we are talking about saving lives. We are talking about promoting the light and love of all the ascended masters, of Christ, of Buddha, of all ascended masters. So it was between the ages, I would say, of 21 and 25, or 26, the 5 years, it was a 5 years, that I slowly became spiritually more prepared. But you could also say it was 9 years, like a 9-year cycle, from, say, age... So from age, 18 to age 27. That's your 9 years there. And that really was, I would say, the entire journey from running away, from first running away from it all of the control, to now being 27, 9 years later. And realizing that, oh my gosh, this is what has really gone on this whole time. my family was bred for reptilian control. My brother was raped and abused as a child, and this is why they are able to control his hunger impulse. What they've done to him is make him never hungry. They can do that, where they affect certain parts of the brain, and you suddenly feel hungry or suddenly lose your appetite. And he suddenly stopped eating after our parents divorced. But see, he hated our father, so he wasn't eating to like protest the fact that they were divorced. We hated our father. He was abusive. He was evil, basically, and we knew that, even as little children. We completely knew that. There was no explanation as to why he suddenly would not eat, and my mother made only one comment to me after being completely possessed and sitting there, like when they're sure they're going to kill you, they will sometimes let things out and tell you stuff. And she said, "Yep, it was after we divorced that, just like that, he stopped eating." And it's like that, and I thought to myself, yeah, that does seem like what happened. And she said, "But your father, he really wanted you. He wanted you." But what they would say is that my father was inside of my mother's body, or inside of other people's bodies, which would make absolutely no sense to me. But you see, they share an overmind, so you could say they're all Satan, or they're all the same entity almost. Even though they possess some separate traits, they all have a web of knowledge, but it's sectioned off like Linux, so that certain areas only have certain parts of the knowledge, and that's how they can all be fooled into a big circus of idiots. Yeah, all of you guys, you hackers, you're a big circus of idiots. They talk about themselves like a circus, or as if they're going to make your life a circus, meaning like a circus of hell. Well, you're a circus of total idiots. Point blank. What happened then with me, I became involved with Native American work, and that became the basis for most of my Ibogaine treatments, using some Native American work. And I'd never had any understanding of just why I would know what to give a person. I would just know somehow. When it would come to pharmaceuticals, Ibogaine, anything basically, herbals, anything, I would just know. Or if I would get something wrong, I would be able to titrate very quickly and then suddenly get it right, and be apologizing to the person. That would happen maybe once or twice in the entire time that I would actually get something slightly off. And I would never really understand why, even though I could calculate things and it would make the same sense, I would instantly have the answer. And then you could go through and you could calculate it based off the person's weight, based off different factors, and find that that's the same answer. But I would have no idea why, like a savant. I would simply know, oh, give this person X amount of this, give this person X amount of this, do this, do this, do this, do this. It would feel as if literally what you would call the Iboga spirit, people in the Ibogaine community, the spirit of the Iboga tree, where Ibogaine comes from, it would feel as if suddenly something would simply take over me to watch over the person, which would allow me to conduct treatments in a way that I was told pretty much only the Gabonese did, where I would be where at the very end there, the person's life that I saved their life in the way that they would have done it in Gabon, which is technically do things that medical science would say this would kill the person. But if you are actually in touch with that soul stream, and also the person that was being treated, she was also very extrasensory. When there is that kind of combination, you see, that's where the rules of physics become suspended. That's why Cryon says you guys are doing all the math or whatever on her. It's not going to work. That's why she gives Ibogaine to a person who is an alcoholic and is having cirrhosis, and it heals their liver because she knows what to do. Oh, you're going to say, she's irresponsible. Actually, she's integrating true science with true spirituality to create a complete science. That's how Kryon says it in his books. That spirituality with science creates a complete science. And so, yes, literally defying what would happen medically. I realized, oh my gosh, I've done this. Oh, I've done this in treatments. This is quite interesting. So now we fast forward, and I became involved with Marco, who would be doing production, and he would claim Slovenia, but wherever the hell it is, who knows? Probably in India. And he tried to use me as his slave. He said to me, "No, you are the Ibogaine provider," because he could see that I was Arcturian. He was Yahyel, and I did not know that at the time. I didn't know about aliens or any of this at the time. And he was Yahyel, and I never saw his face. That was why I never saw his face, because he was Yahyel. And he attempted to seduce me, for one, and then attempted to see if he could basically get me into a position where I would be his very dependent slave who would teach his people my treatment tricks, however I was doing it, however I was magically doing such good treatments, teaching his people for free. And all of this going on in Austria, having to pay to fly there without even having the money to do it. And I would say, hey, we have a problem here. I literally do not have the money to fly there. Do you understand that? And he simply would not appear to understand. And finally, I called the whole thing off at the last minute, because I realized this is a trap. Oh my God, this is a trap. And you are using people. You are using Patrick. You are enslaving everyone that you are involved with. I picked up the enslaving part very quickly, and I said there's something called a triad law. I didn't know what that was, but it just came out, and I came up with something called the cycle of 9. I called it. It seemed like things would complete after a cycle of 9 years or 9 repetitions, and also I would notice 3 as an important repetitive number. As well, and I didn't know anything about numerology. That was in December. So, that was last December. We're going to come up on a year. Then enter to March. That's where the Greys zap me in the head, activate me, see if they can use me as their slave, fail. Then, I go to South Africa to an Ibogaine conference, and I see that all the Ibogaine is being produced by slaves. And I was appalled. I was supposed to take a job being one of the head chemists there, and I said, "Wow, no, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. This goes against my morals." And it was almost as if they did not understand that I was saying no, or that I had the ability to say no. I had to actually tell them, "You don't understand. I'm not asking you for your permission. I am telling you no." And so I came back here, had to fight for my life, because when you have a DVT, I had a deep vein thrombosis here, along my chest, and on the airplane suddenly one formed in my neck, because that can happen on an airplane. And so I had to fight for my life in a crazy Muslim country, almost getting killed, then in Germany, then some scary customs people in Iceland, finally some crazy Jews in New York, then some really messed up Canadian Vermont people, corrupt police in Vermont I'm just going to say to the corrupt police in Vermont, as the Arcturians say, goodbye, and we love you. But goodbye. So then I finally managed to get back here on Amtrak, not able to fly in a plane, and I think to myself, okay, well, I know that I am an Arcturian and that I'm like whatever this ground crew is. I know that we're entering some really great, new things, and I'm supposed to help with it. And then as soon as I get back, I've got maybe a month's notice or less, and I find out about something called Agenda 21 all over YouTube. I would look up, I would see geoengineering, so I began taking pictures of geoengineering, and I began reading continuously about whatever this Agenda 21 was, and also you can look at the $100 bill. The idea was that, like other dollar bills that resemble the World Trade Center being hit by a plane, the $100 bill, when folded in the same fashion, kind of like you're saluting Satan, the way you fold it, looks like the missiles being launched and like the flooding of New York. And that is apparently what did not happen. So that is also apparently why I'm in the situation that I'm in. Or if there's another explanation, I mean, I'd love to hear it, but if literally everyone where I live is, looking for some sort of opening to assassinate me, plus some really fucked up Jews, and I'm going to say that, fucked up Jewish people on the East Coast and fucked up Italian mafia on the East Coast, attempting to kill, rape, murder, enslave, and dominate people, it will not be allowed. It will be squashed. That will be stopped. And also, again, in one of my last lives, I championed the causes of Jews. So I have full right to say it's mostly Jewish people that are behind this corruption right now. And so no, I'm not anti-Semite, definitely, because I used to say all anti-Semites should be shot in my last life. But I can't ignore the obvious facts here. So I find out about Agenda 21, and we're going to talk about Agenda 21 in another hour of this. I'll see you in part 2 because it is a complicated topic.